Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Schulte. I'm the current SEMC EdCom regional rep for AAM. And also, I'm the gallery director at Pensacola State College at the Anna Mar Switzer Center for Visual Arts down here in Florida. So, hi from sunny Florida. So, like Zinnia said, we're trying to be consistent with offering one of these EdCom, SEMC EdCom workshops or webinars once a week. If you all would turn on your chat bar over to the side, I've listed a few things there, including next week's topic, which is also going to be on Tuesday, April 21st at 3 o'clock. And we're going to talk about a program that was developed by the Gaston Museum of Art and History that does not require the internet to reach underprivileged audiences. So please join us for that talk next week. And then also, if you are interested in participating in one of these webinars and have some fabulous ideas to share with others, I have listed a couple of different topics that we're still looking for speakers for. Plus, also, I would be thrilled to get your suggestions and ideas. And so my email is over there. It's mschulte@pensacolastate.edu. And I'll repost this several times throughout the chat because it'll get bumped up and moved away. But somebody already did ask about celebrating National Volunteer Week. And actually, one of our speakers is going to touch on that today. So there you go. The last thing is I've created a Google form. It was requested, and there's a link to that form at the very top of the chat. And anytime during this meeting or after the meeting, if you click on that link, you can fill out the form and share your fabulous ideas with us. And that content will be available to anybody that accesses the form. So once you finish the form, you'll be able to look through other people's ideas. And in a few days, we will email that out. If we generate enough content, we will email that out to everybody that participates today. So you can see some other ideas that are floating around that we might not get to today. I do ask that you mute yourself until the question time, and it's just so we don't have a lot of background noise. And then also, we're going to save questions for after all the speakers have presented near the end, and you can go ahead and post them in the chat area, and then I'm going to sort of craft up questions for them as I watch the chat. But also feel free to use that chat for sharing ideas and other things as well. And so we'll have different modes of communication between all of us. And so I'm not going to do separate introductions, but we have three fabulous speakers today. Marcy Breffel, she's the education manager at Historic Oakland Foundation in Atlanta, Georgia. Chelsea Lloyd, the volunteer coordinator at the Knoxville Museum of Art in Tennessee. And Annie Martin, the volunteer and outreach coordinator at the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington, Kentucky. So we're going to go in alphabetical order, and Marcy is going to begin.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So I'm gonna cross my fingers. I was just on a Zoom call and my internet cut out for some reason. So if you guys lose me, just move on. But let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, how does that work? So, like I said, my name's Marcy. I'm the education manager at Historic Oakland Foundation. We're at Oakland Cemetery in Atlanta. Oakland is a 48-acre green space and cemetery and public park. So we fall under the Atlanta Park Department. And so we've been kind of following, I guess, the guidelines that just say, that we've been following Georgia's shelter in place. So, and I'll kind of get to that in a little bit. But we have over 300 volunteers. Our volunteers do a variety of tasks. They work in our visitor center, they give tours, they work our special events, they work in the gardens, some help with preservation efforts, but there is so much to do at Oakland. So since we've been on shelter in place, we have paused all volunteer activities. So I'm going to kind of go through what we did, like kind of the first steps we've been taking and where our focus has been on volunteer engagement. So first off, let's see. These are some of our beautiful volunteers. You know, they do a variety of things, and they're just wonderful. So I'm talking volunteers. These are just a few of the folks that I'm talking about. And I will say I live right across the street from Oakland, and I've been walking my dog there almost every day. So it's been nice to see a bunch of these folks and kind of engage with them just on a personal level throughout this whole thing. So let's see. So most of y'all have probably already done kind of like first steps, but if you haven't, this is kind of our process that we went through. And sorry if you can hear my dog barking, she can hear me now. So we did kind of the first thing we were talking about is we've been work from home since March 13th. And the first thing we kind of looked at was like, what are we gonna do? Can we direct any of our focus, direct any of our volunteers? And no, we can't, we're a cemetery. So we decided to focus on volunteer engagement, but kind of thinking about in your volunteer program respond directly to community needs. So I know I was on a call last week and the Atlanta Opera said that they were directing some of their efforts to fundraise for Grady Hospital. And they were also sending singing teams out to retirement homes, which is very cool, but we can't exactly do that. So your kind of options are either shift focus and resources to help respond to COVID-19, or you maintain focus on core services. And we decide to maintain focus on core services and really just kind of pause all volunteer activity. So our team, our programming team meets once a week, and I actually just got off that phone conference call. Sorry, my dog's barking. But we meet once a week, and kind of at the very beginning, we decided to pause all volunteer activities, and we started kind of soliciting feedback from staff members who regularly work with volunteers. And I deal directly with tour guides, but we have a fantastic volunteer manager who, she does volunteer and special events. She's just been killing it. She's been kind of leading our team. So I'm just kind of responding for all of Oakland. But we did a couple of things. So everyone who dealt with volunteers talked about what our volunteer response was going to be. We identified vulnerable volunteers because, like a lot of y'all, we have a lot of seniors. We have a lot of people who, maybe live on their own, have underlying health conditions. So we made a list of those most vulnerable volunteers and then started coordinating communications for all of us to reach out to them, because we wanted to make sure that we were doing a touch base with all of these vulnerable people. So we've been coordinating that through Microsoft Teams. That's been kind of our internal structure. And then the first thing we did was to send out an email from our co-executive director that basically communicated all the necessary information. So how is Oakland responding to the COVID crisis? How is our response going to affect volunteers? And what was the next step? So this is kind of our family plan. When I first started at Oakland, I think in my job interview, the staff members that I volunteered with kind of said that Oakland's a family. It's a family of staff, of volunteers, of supporters, of people who come to the park. And I kind of laughed about it at the time, but then realized like it actually is the truth. It really is the family. So, but we decided to cancel all programs and tours through April 30th. That was originally April 13th, but then we rolled to April 30th once Georgia issued a shelter in place through the 30th. We temporarily suspended all volunteer trainings. We usually do all of our trainings at the beginning of the year, and tour training usually ends around the end of April. We created a list of vulnerable volunteers and assigned staff to touch base. We decided to be transparent in all communications, which we try to do anyways. We wanted to foster a community of support. So really thinking about how do we make our volunteers feel safe and supported. And we wanted to make it fun. So, and I'm going to talk about some of the different ways we've been doing that. And then kind of thinking outside the box with our communication mediums. So usually we correspond primarily through email with all of our volunteers, but we've been doing some phone calls, snail mail, and as I'll show kind of some more video stuff. So let's see. All right, let me move that out of the way. Okay, so this is an example of kind of our regular communication that we offer with volunteers. So usually we do a monthly newsletter, but Mary, our volunteer manager, is now gone to twice a month. And it's really kind of like almost following like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, we're communicating the information to make people feel safe, but then we're also trying to support them with, you know, we're thinking of you, we miss you guys, la, la, la. And then also, here's how y'all can help, and here's how you can be of service to the organization. So, you know, regular communication is so important, but you can see here, it's got in the little yellow box, like how to help. You know, talking to our volunteers about, you know, they know so much about the people buried at Oakland. Is there a fun story they've heard or something that we can put on our social media and then send it out to everybody, all the people who follow us on Facebook and Instagram? You know, also asking volunteers if they have any good ideas for a blog post, because again, since we've stopped all of our programs right now, the only engaging that we're really doing is through digital content. So a lot of blog posts, things like that. And then also you see in that green box kind of what have we, here's the updates on the different tours and programs and events that we've been doing. Okay. So methods of communication. So we've been, of course, emailing with all of our volunteers, you know, dropping some letters in the mail for some of our folks who are not that great with email. I know one of our volunteers had a stroke during this whole crisis, so dropped a letter to her. Another volunteer, her mother passed away, and her mother passed away up in New York. And I'm not sure if it was COVID related, but, you know, dropped a letter in the mail just to let her know we're thinking of her and supporting her. Of course, putting out phone calls to all of our volunteers, then through Facebook and social media groups. So those are some of the more traditional methods. And then we started thinking about how to really kind of focusing on a face-to-face with those volunteers that, you know, are a little bit more internet savvy. So in our monthly communication, we've been including these video messages from different staff members. So you can see on the right, Richard Harker, who is our co-executive director, he did a video, and then David Moore, who is another co-executive director, he did a video, and I'm actually gonna drop out of, I can, how do I stop? How do I get out of here? I'm gonna try to, well, shoot. And show. Okay, well, I was gonna try and play a video. I'm not sure how to get out of this. Oh, here we go, and show. It's surprising how you forget how to do the simplest things, you know? So let me pull it up. This is David. I'm going to play just a little bit of this. Some of you guys may know David. He is always at SCMC. He's usually pretty loud and draws a lot of attention. So this is just a part of his video that he sent out through our messaging.
Greetings, awesome, wonderful Oakland volunteer family. It's David Moore coming to you from the Bobby Jones Room. But I'm really doing this to, number one, make sure and hope that every one of you and your families are safe and you're well. And I hope that you will continue to take care of yourselves and do the right thing. I do miss you terribly. We all miss seeing each other. I miss your faces. I miss your being out here, and I know you miss being out here as well. So, but we need you to, you know, do the social distancing thing. Wash the hands. I know some of you are not socially distancing. I see a couple. Oh, that's Ren and Helen Davis. Well, that's okay. You don't have to social distance. There's, who else? Who's out there? Bill and Diane Terry. That's okay. But the rest of you, you take care of yourselves, because we're going to need you back in the fall. I mean, when we weather this COVID-19, and we're going to, we've got some creative ways to put some revenue back in the coffers so that we can get through the summer And then when fall hits, we'll be ready with our tours and special events, and particularly, of course, Halloween, when it's going to be an all hands on deck. I mean, it's going to be a wonderful homecoming when we see you all again. I mean, can you imagine a 200 people group hug just like that? Woo! In fact, when you're back, I'm going to give each and every one of you a hug. Oh, I understand that's an HR violation, but those who want one certainly can have one. And like I said, we are coming up with some creative ways to keep the revenue in. In fact, I've got something here that Tim's going to start selling in the gift shop. As you can see, it's the Oakland COVID-19 mask to keep you safe. Hopefully this will be a thing of the past. We won't need this when you come back. But they have other...
Sorry, I'm skipping it ahead because then it kind of devolves a little bit. Hold on.
As well. We do miss you. Can't wait to see you again. In the meantime, like I said, be careful, be safe. We love you. See you back here really soon.
All right. So that is just an example of one of the video that we've been trying to put out there for folks. I'm actually supposed to do one today. So David's done one, Richard, and then I'm next. So as you can see, a little bit of makeup on, ready for my camera debut. So another thing that we've been doing besides video messages is we attempted a Zoom call with our volunteers. And like I said, we've got over 300 volunteers, probably easily about 150 regular volunteers. But we did one last Friday. And this is kind of the things sent out to folks. So Friday at 10, it was just like BYOB. I thought it was going to be a disaster, and it was a disaster, but it was so much fun. So this is a couple of our beautiful volunteers. You can see everybody had a beverage. So it was, it was a good time. It was a good happy hour. It was about an hour. And I think we're going to try and do it some more. A lot of folks really enjoyed it. And again, just kind of this focus on face-to-face interaction, really wanting to make our volunteers feel supported and needed, and that we're, absolutely here for them. So hopefully we will do the volunteer. And I think we're trying to explore different plugins. Like I would love to do a trivia Zoom with our volunteers, because I think that's not only educational, but also pretty fun. And then kind of next of what's going on, our volunteer manager has kind of created a pen pal program. So a way for our volunteers to kind of reconnect with current volunteers, but then also maybe meet someone new, because there's like only twice a year will the volunteers all see each other, and that's at our spring picnic and then our holiday party. So it's a great way to meet somebody new. And then for some of you guys that are on social media, a big thing recently has been kind of like these bingo cards on Instagram. So we talked about doing an Oakland volunteer bingo that we could send out to people, and they can, cross off what they've done and then maybe share their results. But it's something that everybody's, gone through. I'm sure, like our volunteers, you have to at least done a couple of the things on this list. So that's kind of what we're doing at Oakland, is again, focusing on, rather than types of training, just really trying to support our volunteers, make them feel safe, and needed. So that is Oakland.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And those are some wonderful ideas. I love that video with David also. So next we have Chelsea Loy from the Knoxville Museum of Art. And I'll give her a second to get prepared. And then...
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Let me share my screen. Here, can you see it? All right, let's start the PowerPoint. Okay, hello. I'm Chelsea Lloyd, the volunteer coordinator at the Knoxville Museum of Art. And we're going to be talking about connecting with volunteers during a shutdown. We also have a great docent program. I'm not in charge of the docents, but docents are volunteers, so this is about volunteers in general. A little bit about our program. We have about 200 volunteers that participate annually with us. We have lots of different departments where they can volunteer their time. We have numerous volunteers who do different areas, multiple areas, and are extremely dedicated to our museum and its mission, and have been with us for years and years. We even have a volunteer who's been with us for 30 years. So it just shows how dedicated these individuals are to our museum. So interacting with volunteers before this whole thing, we would send out a weekly email to everyone, and it would highlight events that are coming up at the museum. I would send out schedule reminders every Monday, particularly for our front desk volunteers, and then also when there were special events and things like that. And then we would also share information about KMA art and artists that was relevant to the volunteers. We also have, of course, in-person conversations when you see a volunteer around the museum, especially at the front desk, or if they're doing administrative work, you can always stop and chat. Then, as Marcy mentioned, you know, sending out mail. We send out a Valentine's card to all our volunteers as a save the date for our volunteer appreciation reception, and that was received pretty well. And then a less frequent option is phone calls, because we are in a digital age. So after everything has happened, I try to keep a little bit of consistency with the volunteers and still send out the weekly email. It has museum updates with, you know, closing information, when we might open, when we might not open. I always send out news from our executive director, David Butler, to keep the consistency, information about our art and artists, and also some suggestions on how to stay involved in the community. Like if there's volunteer needs with our KMA partners, particularly Volunteer East Tennessee, we can kind of outsource our volunteer needs since we can't really utilize everyone's particular talents right now. And also sharing artistic activities in the area. We still have the less frequent mail and phone calls, and now we're trying some new things with quizzes about the museum, some fun puzzles, and social media posts. So the first thing that we've done differently is our extra credit quizzes. Here's a sample. We usually have about 7 questions, but they couldn't all fit on this without being super tiny. So it's just kind of an example of the questions that we ask. Volunteers can earn about 3.5 hours of credit, extra credit, or 30 minutes apiece. It's not valid for community service or scholarships, but it's kind of like a trivia game if any of your volunteers like that. It's pretty fun, and we have a pretty good group of people who participate each week. And even if they don't get the answer correct, it is a learning opportunity for all of your volunteers, because you are asking questions that are specific to the organization. It can be a great learning tool, and it's information that all of the volunteers should know about your organization and your program. Staff can also benefit from it too, just to learn more about your volunteer program in general. So that's been a pretty fun thing that we've been doing, and we came up with the idea with our volunteer advisory council as well. So the next thing that I'm sure a lot of you have been doing is being active on social media. We have a new volunteer or KMA volunteer community. It's a private Facebook group. Volunteers are missing a sense of community, being together at our organizations. So a digital version can kind of offer a version of the lost connection. This group, our group, the KMA group, was created after the shutdown, and we have over 40 members now, and it's both KMA volunteers and staff, because staff and volunteers would interact daily, and it's just a good place for them to continue that interaction. We share posts of past events at the museum to, you know, offer some fond memories for the volunteers and the staff, and it also gives a little bit of hope for the future about hopefully getting business back to usual. You can also use this platform as an opportunity to start conversations by sharing links and articles and photos that are related to your organization. I like to share images of work in the KMA collection, and then give a little bit of information about the artist. So that's always fun, and a learning opportunity as well. But make sure you have permission to share the images before you do. So the next thing is themed puzzles, which are really fun, and we've had great feedback about. I use a website called Jigsaw Planet. The Barnsley Museum in England actually had this idea first, so this is a piggyback idea. But it's super easy. It's a free website, jigsawplanet.com. It takes 3 steps. You create your account with your email address. You upload a photo as long as you have permission, and then you just share it. This is what it looked like on our social media page. When somebody clicks on it, you can see how many people have played it in your account, and then it'll kind of look like this, and they kind of click together, so it's very satisfying. And people can customize how many pieces there are. This is the 49 piece, and it takes about 5 or so minutes, but then it can go up to 100 pieces or more, and they can also customize the background color as well. So jigsawplanet.com, it's free and easy and fun. April is Volunteer Appreciation Month, so how are you recognizing your volunteers this month? We actually do an annual volunteer appreciation reception, and as you can see, it was scheduled for today. It's not a coincidence. It's actually the day that we had scheduled the reception, and it's a catered dinner and drinks, live music, speakers that are important at the KMA. We do a docent graduation every year for individuals who completed the program, and then we have awards for our Volunteer of the Year and Docent of the Year, and then special hour awards. But like a lot of events, it was canceled. So we had to come up with a way to appreciate our volunteers digitally. So this is a volunteer appreciation YouTube video. I made it in PowerPoint and then saved it as an MPEG-4 file and then had it uploaded to YouTube. And I can play a little bit of it. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's almost 20 minutes long. So I'll just kind of highlight what we did here. There should be sound. I'm not sure if you can hear the sound, but it's on the KMA YouTube channel. So it just kind of explains what's going on. It's got some nice animation things. And then we go through, and it's got a photo of our volunteers in the beginning. And then I just go through and get, excuse me, quotes from, well, there's also photos. It's the KMA's 30th anniversary this year as well. So I put lots of photos from our database of past events and things like that. Excuse me one second. So then we go forward, there's lots of photos. Then we have a quote from our executive director, David Butler, just how thankful and awesome our volunteers are. More photos, more quotes from everyone. Our volunteer advisory council, some recognition there. Quotes and photos just to give the warm fuzzies to the volunteers. And it did launch today, and we've had extremely positive feedback from that. And you can kind of see how, the photos come up, and there's little animations to keep people's attention span going. And then we have our docent graduation here. Oh, that's our docents at the Christmas party. And then when there's not so many names, you can, if you have photos of your volunteers, you can always add their photos to the presentation. And then that's some nice recognition for them. And then skipping forward a little bit, we recognize, oops, that's still on this, okay, here we go. Recognize all of the docents, and you just have the list scroll and things like that. And then you can enter lots of names and have everyone feel appreciated. We do all the docents, special awards, more quotes from staff, more photos. I tried to get as many staff members involved as I could because, volunteers are really important and they work in different areas of our organization, and we just want to make sure everybody knows how appreciated they are. So then we get to this slide, and it's recognizing volunteers who've contributed over 24 hours in a full year to the museum. I learned a lot about PowerPoint doing this, how to layer things and with the music background, and then recognize the volunteers with 50 to 100 hours, just have their names scroll through. And it seems like we can recognize more people in a digital version than we would be able to in an actual program, because you can recognize 200 people in 20 minutes, whereas in an actual program, you can't do that. So then 100 to 99. And then once we get to 200 hours, it's not so many people. So we're able to, oh, hang on. We're able to put their photos in as well. And that's a nice touch. So I'm just gonna skip ahead quite a bit. If you wanna watch this whole thing, even though you don't know the people in here, you're welcome to. It's on the Knoxville Museum of Art YouTube channel. This is our volunteer who's donated 30 years to the museum. So that's a tremendous donation on her part. And we're so thankful to have all of our dedicated volunteers. Then we just highlight the ones who've been here the longest. Then over the years, recognize our archives committee who are digitizing our files. And then this part is where we announce the Volunteer of the Year and the Docent of the Year, and our Leadership Award as well. We have two different awards that we give out every year, but then sometimes we have a special acknowledgement for that. And then it just, drum roll please, and then the certificate, and then a photo of just, if you have photos of your volunteers, it's always nice to add one. So then we do Docent of the Year, Volunteer of the Year. We had 2 people pass away from our KMA community, so we have a little acknowledgement for them at the end of the video. And then just a thank you. And then this slide is recognizing all of the volunteers that we have. Come on, play. All of the volunteers. We had almost 200 volunteers, so then you can just do it's called credits on the PowerPoint, and then it'll just scroll and scroll. Like I said, it was a learning experience how to get all of these names on there, but I think it came out pretty well. And that's a good way to recognize everyone, even if they give just 1 hour. 1 hour really adds up, and their contribution does mean something. And then skip forward, and I think that's about it. And just thank you to the volunteers. So that's a good way to digitally appreciate everyone. And like I said, we've had great feedback. And that's about all for my presentation. I'm going to try and quit chatting now. But if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, and I'd be happy to answer them. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. So up next, we have Annie Martin at the Kentucky Horse Park.
Hello, everybody. My name is Annie Martin, and I am the Volunteer and Outreach Coordinator for the Kentucky Horse Park. I shared a little bit yesterday in our practice run-through that we have a very big volunteer program because the Kentucky Horse Park is 1,200 acres. So we have volunteers that help out in every aspect of the park, from obviously the museum. Volunteers are very helpful in there. Docents helping with research, as well as library assistants. But we also have volunteers that are helping out in the barns and giving tours and with our field trip program. So I'm really focusing today with you all about our volunteers that are active in our museum. About a little bit of background about our program. It's been around for about 20 years. We have 400 active volunteers, and like the other speakers, we have about 150 that are really solid volunteers that are out at the park most frequently. So I'm going to share my screen. Share my screen. So an overview on the International Museum of the Horse. It is a Smithsonian affiliate. It's 64,000 square feet dedicated to the horse. All breeds of horses in all areas of the world and throughout all of history. The equine species has had a profound impact on humans, and we continue to have a unique relationship with horses. So like I said, we've got 1,200 acres. We have about 40 horses that live on the park full time. In our visitor attraction area, guests can go through, watch a few different horse shows, really interact with horses, and then visit our International Museum of the Horse. In terms of volunteers, throughout this odd, terrible time that we're going through, I've really focused on engagement and keeping volunteers engaged in thinking about the park, so that when all of this is over, it's an easy transition to get them back active with the Kentucky Horse Park and in the museum. So we've been really transparent in any kind of park administration updates. The Kentucky Horse Park is a government affiliated park. So anything that the governor says applies to us. So I've really been trying to stay transparent, because it's not just coming from our director. We kind of have a lot of chiefs. So it's important for our volunteers to know what's going on as soon as we know that. I share a lot of social media updates. We are very fortunate that the park and the museum we're in an interesting space because we have live animals. We still have a staff that's out at the park. So they're doing a really good job of posting videos on social media. And I try to share that with the volunteers. Just like the other presenters, we have a Facebook group where our volunteers come in. Can y'all still see my screen? No. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a Facebook group where we post pictures. We have so much going on at the horse park still that we're really able to keep people engaged this way. We always post old pictures of people riding the different breeds of the horses and different things that are going on throughout the park. We are also very fortunate that our museum staff works very closely with the volunteers and has a great relationship with them. And our museum staff is able to create videos about different exhibits throughout the park, our different statues, and these are posted to our YouTube page. So this is Ashley Chilton, who's actually on our video conference right now. Hi, Ashley. And I'm just gonna play a quick tidbit of this, and this is something that guests of the park really enjoy, but volunteers especially enjoy it.
Welcome back to another mini virtual tour here at the
Can you hear it?
Museum of the Horse. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about skeletons and the anatomy of a horse. If any of you have ever come up to a live horse, you know that you need to come up by the side of their face. Horses have the largest eyes out of land mammals, and so that allows them to see up to 50 times larger than what a typical human can see. Their eyes are positioned on the side of their faces, so basically they can see almost all the way around their bodies except for right in front of their nose and right behind their tail. So you're going to come up by the side, you're going to be nice, gentle, friendly, and pet them by the side of their faces so that they can make sure that they see you.
So the museum staff has done a really great job of putting these videos out there. Like I said, the volunteers really love this because they have such a personal relationship. The other thing that I've really tried to encourage is that volunteers are sharing these videos and the different posts that the horse park is posting. We ask them to share it on their personal pages so that it brings more awareness to the Kentucky Horse Park. I'm also purposefully, let me stop sharing this. I'm purposefully continuing regular forms of communication. So that means my bi-monthly emails, I try to continue those on the 1st and the 15th so that there's some regularity. I mentioned our volunteer program Facebook group. One thing that I have been very busy doing is I sent 220 handwritten notes over the past few weeks. I think that we're all in agreement that a majority of our volunteers are older, and a handwritten note goes a really long way. So Marcy, I know that you had mentioned doing that as well. I was really busy. I have a toddler as well, so it's hard to write notes with a toddler. So it's taken me a little while, but I had a really positive response from that. And it was just a simple, hello, we're thinking of you. We can't wait to see you back at the park when we open. Reach out if you need us. So like I said, we had a really positive response from that. I've been really intentional in making sure that I have personal notes, calls, or emails out to those vulnerable volunteers that I know are sick or older or have people in their family that are very vulnerable to the coronavirus. So I make sure to reach out to them on a regular basis. Birthday wishes, that's something that I've always done. I usually try to find a funny horse picture that says happy birthday, and I'll customize it and put information about the horse park. But that's just something that I've really been extra careful to keep up on and to keep that regular. The other thing, and I don't know if other volunteer managers out there utilize volunteer match, but that's something that I use on a regular basis to get volunteers, new volunteers. So it's a method of outreach that I use. And through volunteer match, they sent out an email a few weeks ago advertising a widget that you can put on your personal page that can link your volunteers to COVID-19 related volunteer opportunities, either from home or to go out in your community. So that's the least that I can do. And that's up on our website on our volunteer tab. So that's just something when our volunteers go to the website, it's, you know, the least that we can do for our community. Lastly, Volunteer Appreciation Week is next week, the 19th through the 25th. So we usually, I have staff that really steps up and we do different projects, and every day in the office, volunteers can come in and get a snack or a cake or whatever silly things I've come up with. So this year we're doing it virtually. Next week, I'm going around to all of our different staff members that are still working. So this is our barn managers, our mounted police officers, the people who are still out at the park. And I'm gonna go around and do a video. So in the past, we've had, the staff has said, hey, Angie, we really appreciate that you're a docent every single Monday afternoon. We couldn't do it without you. So I'm gonna go and film it. I'm trying to encourage staff to be really creative. So maybe we can get our mounted police officers on their horses saying it. Or we know that Mike's favorite horse is Funny Side. So we're gonna film something with Funny Side and do a shout out to Mike. So really try to have those personal touches within that video to send out for Volunteer Appreciation Week. Also had the idea just yesterday from the other presenters, we're definitely going to incorporate a Zoom happy hour. So thank you ladies for suggesting that. It'll be interesting. I see that in the comments that other people have tried it and it looks like it's been successful. So wish us luck. But I'm also inviting the staff to that. So hopefully I really try hard to mesh the staff with the volunteers, because we are a family. We're out there at the Kentucky Horse Park is such a special place, and volunteers really call it their second home. So I like to try to incorporate all staff members of all aspects of the park into anything involving the volunteer program. So that's just a few things that we are doing at the Kentucky Horse Park and within the International Museum of the Horse.
Great, thank you, Annie. Does anyone have any questions for any of our speakers? You can just chime in at this point. Otherwise, I was wondering between Marcy and Chelsea, with your online videos, did you just use a phone to take those and then load them up? What kind of equipment are you using? Anything specialized or just what you can find?
That's a good question. I think we've just been using kind of phones. It's really low, like the production value is very low on these, but it's kind of the easiest thing to do. I know last week, I went out onto the grounds with our PR and marketing manager and to just get footage for a digital kind of snippets for a digital tour. And she just used her phone and a tripod. So, because I don't know how to use any of that equipment. So, yeah, pretty low production value, but just making sure you have a quiet space.
No, we talked about that last week. It seems like educators were sort of thrown into this pool of, how do you do this on the internet, you know, get it done when the shutdown occurred? If you don't have a large IT staff or even an IT person on your payroll, then you're sort of trying to figure it out yourselves, and you're tasked to do that and keep in touch with your volunteers, your docents, your school groups, your kids. And so that's That's a good answer, actually. Are you sending out the videos to just, how are you sending them to the docents? Are you embedding them in emails, sending them through Facebook? How are you getting those videos out?
I just responded to Katie Erickson in the chat function. So we're sending it out. We do twice a month emails through MailChimp, and
Okay.
it's embedding the videos in that. So, which has been good. And I will just, and I know, digital happy hour, honestly, when we did that, it was really a lot of fun, and we did it to just keep people from just like talking over each other. We kind of did like popcorn style, where you would do a quick update about yourself and then do say like, okay, popcorn Susan, and then so just to kind of keep it like a, you know, from descending into a madhouse. So, and then we had one kind of staff member who was kind of keeping track of who had and hadn't been picked.
Mm-hmm.
That helped.
Any other questions? Wow. I hope we're all not getting zoomed out at this point. I do know that some people were sharing on the side, you know, ways to keep people engaged, because we're not only interested in keeping volunteers engaged so they come back when we reopen, but you have to think about it. A lot of them come from our vulnerable population of possibly seniors or people with disabilities that are going to be really isolated at this time. And so coming up with these activities like the puzzles, just to keep them engaged and not feeling lonely, are also so wonderful. Somebody had mentioned polls or bingo. Has anybody else had any kind of good response to bingo games or any kind of activities like these with your volunteers?
Can I ask a follow-up question that sort of piggybacks on that, Michelle?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, like, it seems like you guys are doing such cool programs and putting a lot of effort into trying to stay in contact with your docents and other volunteers. Sorry, art museum, so docents are on my brain. But my question, I guess, is like, we've been sending out like weekly newsletters and lots of like email updates, and I'm trying to stay in touch with people over the phone and group emails as well as one-on-one, and sort of getting them engaged in both helping me with some backlog admin work, as well as like giving them articles to write for the newsletter and things like that. But I feel like we have some that are super engaged, and then some that I haven't heard of since the shutdown, or haven't heard from since the shutdown. And I was wondering, especially those of you who have like such huge amounts of volunteers, you know, we have about 65, so I can't even imagine the groups of like 300 or more, and trying to keep all those engaged. But like, what have been your rates of participation with sort of the distance initiatives, if you know?
Well, I can talk about the quizzes that we send out weekly. So I send it to our entire volunteer group on the database, and that's over 200 people, and only about less than 20 respond every week regularly. So it's a fraction of the whole group, but it's still beneficial for those who do participate. And we have the same experience as you with docents and volunteers who are really involved, but since the shutdown, they haven't really been so involved. So maybe they're just taking time to focus on themselves and not so much giving right now.
Yeah.
I would say that we probably had, like I said, we probably have like about 150 regular volunteers, and maybe like 50 have been pretty active. I think everybody's kind of dealing with this in their own way. So it's, you know, we have some people who, Oakland volunteers, who are just like huge extroverts, and they like live off of the contact, which like I'm one of those people. Like I thought I was more introverted than I am, definitely about the extroverted side in me. But just trying to, so they're trying to kind of, you know, they're doing what they want to do. I will say we have a Facebook page that was actually started by volunteers. It's completely driven by them. I'm a member of the group, just as to kind of be a link between Oakland, the staff and the volunteers, but I would say that is way more active of just this kind of like peer-to-peer interaction. And it's a thing where it's like Facebook, it's, you know, everybody's got a Facebook. Not everybody uses their Facebook, but like even some of our oldest, like least tech savvy volunteers like still have a Facebook profile. And so that's a place where they can engage with one another. And it's not only folks who are sharing their, you know, pictures that they've taken, other people who have been doing research on residents at Oakland. They've been sharing old newspaper articles and stories. And it's also a way, you know, where our volunteers can engage with the digital content that we're putting out. Now, since that is grassroots, it's hard to replicate it as a staff member, but I would say like that actually has been probably the most popular point of interaction, is just this one Facebook page where it's just like volunteer to volunteer. So, you know, it almost feels like staff member as the parents, we've like taken a step away and it's like the kids are playing together, but they've been having a really good time with that.
Marcy, did you have the program with the pen pals?
So that's a new initiative that was started by Mary, our volunteer manager. And she, I think that sent that out late last week, but we've already had about 30 people sign up for that. So she is coordinating that program, but it's seen, I mean, 30 people in a couple of days seems like response. So I'll have her keep tabs on that, or maybe if we do like another volunteer thing, would love to have her kind of talk about that, or, you know, join us next time.
Yeah, because that seems like a really good idea also, and it sort of gets that personal touch away from, you know, trying to keep them engaged so they come back, but really just to keep them engaged so they're mentally encouraged to get through this together. You know, I'm going to call people out. A couple people over at the chat said that they had Easter Bunny tour their museum. Does anybody want to comment on the Easter Bunny touring their museum? Because that sounds like a really cute idea, and what kind of response you may not have gotten from volunteers, but in the community in general.
I think Will should speak about his experience.
Yeah, there's Will.
Yeah, I simply, well, we canceled our Easter egg hunt with our Tuscaloosa Bells this year for obvious reasons. And so I went, put on the Easter Bunny costume that we have, forced my kids to go and take Easter Bunny photographs at three of the five of our historic structures. And we just did some posed photographs and posted them up on Facebook and Instagram, just to let people know we were thinking about them and trying to bring a little bit of lightness to the whole situation that's going on. And then I did it again and rode around on the back of a truck here in my neighborhood on Saturday. So
I did the same exact thing at Beaches Museum. We took pictures last week, and all the way through Easter weekend, every 2 hours, we did a Facebook update of where the Easter Bunny was in our museum. And we had just fun little stories, little videos, did some of those boomerang things like pulling a carrot out of the garden, things like that. But then we also rode around on Saturday and just around the Beaches neighborhood and just greeted people and had our picture taken with families and, you know, 6 feet away, obviously. But on Facebook, it was a lot of fun for people to follow. They really enjoyed it. We even had the Easter Bunny delivering toilet paper out of our restrooms in the Easter basket. Yeah,
that's a good idea, actually.
I'm just happy it wasn't 80 or 90 degrees and it was a pleasant 64.
Yeah. Oh, it was 95 when I was doing it. I was burning up. It was terrible.
Chelsea, somebody asked what particular resource you used to learn how to do your PowerPoint with all the layering and the credits and the animations.
So it just took time and practice, and the animations, you have to preview them and watch it over and over and over and make sure that it goes correctly and evenly. And especially with, if you put music in the background, that was way trickier than I thought to like match up the songs so they're not overlapping, because they have to be on a certain slide, you know, a couple of seconds makes a big difference. And then you can also ask Google if you have questions. I had questions about the credits at the end. You can only make the information as big as the PowerPoint slide, and then you have to layer them on top of each other and line them up and have them, it's the timing and, you know, seconds, and it's tricky because there's only 60 seconds allowed on each PowerPoint slide. So you really have to be a little, use your math skills a little bit when you're trying to figure out how to evenly have them scroll up the screen. So it just took time and practice and fiddle around with it. And I'm sure there are some PowerPoint videos available if you're not familiar with the system. I have made presentations in the past, but not quite as involved as this one was. And then to upload it to YouTube, I asked our marketing director what format it needed to be in, and she just said it needed to be in an MPEG-4, and you can just, when you're saving it, just save as the MPEG-4, and it took like 20 minutes every time I tried to save it as that. So it's just time, and that's all it took, is time and testing and watching and rewatching.
Yeah, great. So if there's no other questions, we can adjourn for this week. I went ahead and I posted the link to the form again. If you have any great ideas that you're doing with docents and volunteers and you just want to write them out and submit that form, we can get those distributed out. Plus also next week, again, we have Alexander Brooks, the education manager at Gaston County Museum of Art and History. He's going to talk about internet-less programs that he's doing with some underserved populations. And so I hope you join us then. And I want to thank all of our speakers for participating today. Thank you for putting together PowerPoints for us and showing your videos. And I thank all of you for taking your time to join us. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the week.
And just one final word from SEMC. I also echo, that was great. I really appreciate all the presentations. Michelle, the moderation. I feel as though you and I are running a talk show lately. So we'll continue it because it's fun. But later this week, if you work at a historic house or if you're just interested, there is a historic house Zoom meetup on Thursday at 1 o'clock. And then on Friday, as always, at 5 p.m. Eastern, these are all Eastern times, we have our SEMC happy hour. And so we've been averaging between, 15 and 20 people. There's no program, just drop in and see your friends. It's just a nice way to end the week. Next week, we'll, Cassandra, I know you just emailed me, but we're still working on a Zoom for exhibits. And then actually on Friday, the 24th, there'll be an SEMC Zoom for development professionals. So, we're trying to keep some consistency and then diversify our offerings every week. So thank you for everyone for participating from SEMC.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.